And it is, of course, pre-recorded, so I can edit things and do all that kind of stuff too.
Cool.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking to the creator of a book that I see back there on the wall, Weird Work, as well as a number of other titles, and that is writer, creator Jordan Thomas. Jordan, thank you for jumping in and talking with me.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me on the show again.
Absolutely glad to have you anytime. This is an open Zoom space. If you just need to come hang out, that's totally fine. Um, on this episode, we're talking about a particular book that you've been working on. I believe we're at the second or third issue at this point in what's been released, and that is the series Skin Police.
Yeah, so two issues are out, and the next issue is in shops in 2 Wednesdays' time.
Yeah, yeah. We'll try to get this out in time for people to check out the latest issue, the latest episode. But I'm assuming with a title like Skin Police, we're talking about like Victorian era. We're talking about maybe a school with a really strict dress code or something like that. So we'll circle back around to that. I'm an educator, so that's what automatically comes to my mind. But it might be a little different than that. What's recently had your creative attention? Is Skin Police sort of the major focus at this point?
So I guess the funny thing when you're the writer on projects, it's a little bit, the timelines are a bit tighter with comics than like film or television. But as the writer, you still do the work quite a long time in advance of when the book actually comes out. So I actually finished writing all of the issues of Skin Police probably back in January of this year.
Oh,
And then
cool,
you kind
cool.
of, the artist needs time. The artist job tends to take a fair bit longer than the writing part. We
Yeah.
kind of get to be like, okay, there's going to be, you know, 200 people in a crowd that's all going wild, and that takes you 20 seconds to write, and then the artist has to spend 2 days drawing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a little while since I'm still in a Skin Police headset, and that I'm dropping back in when the art comes in and looking at the lettering layouts and seeing if there's little tweaks I can make based on Daniel Gette's awesome art. If maybe I don't need some dialogue, which I can get out the way so we can see more of what he's done. But yeah, apart from that, it was announced that I'm writing a new series for Comixology, the Amazon comics
Hmm.
publishing company. So yeah, that's kind of been one of the main things that I've been working on recently, which I'm not allowed to talk about what it is yet, but that's going to be with my good friend and collaborator Chris Matthews that I do mugshots with as well, which is also coming out at the moment. So yeah, fairly busy with lots of different types of stories, which is always fun when you're a writer who gets to do some different things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love the variety and looking forward to seeing what comes with Comixology. I've really enjoyed a couple of the series that they've put out. So glad that you were tapped into that creative venue as well.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty creatively free environment at Comixology, and that it works a little bit differently to a lot of the other publishers, in that it's more that you kind of present this idea to them, and then they're like, okay, we like that, and they give you a budget, and then you as a team go off and make it for them, and then
Hmm.
bring it back, as opposed to the more traditional kind of, you write a script, it goes to the editor, they have feedback, there's maybe changes, and the editor's very involved. It's a much more just okay, we trust you guys to do a good job, and we like the idea, and we're gonna, apart, as long as you don't do anything that's kind of going to get us in trouble, then we're kind of happy for you to just create the book that you want to create.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And I imagine that's very rewarding to have that kind of creative freedom.
Yeah, I think you need to have a really good relationship with the people you're working with. And Chris Matthews,
Mhm.
who I'm doing that project with, we've been friends since we were like 11 years old, and we have a relationship where we can kind of not criticize each other exactly, but we can say what we think, and we don't fall out or have any problems. So yeah, I think it works with me and Chris. Maybe if you didn't know the artist you're working with so well, I guess having that editor there to kind of manage, like, oh, I really need them to change this piece of art they've worked really hard on, but I don't want to have to tell them. Can the editor tell them? Is often a bit of a safety net. But yeah, with me and Chris, then we're fine. It's a nice, a pleasurable experience.
Very cool. Yeah. You mentioned sort of paring back some dialogue to let the art shine through. Is that a typical part of the process? Is that something that you find yourself doing at times?
Yeah, I think so. I as much as I'm a writer in comics, I do think comics is a visual medium.
Hmm.
So if the art is doing the job and you don't need a caption explaining what's going on because the art has delivered that emotion so well, then I'd much rather get rid of the caption and be able to see more of the art. And I'm often in the books that I've done, sometimes I'm the happiest with the pages that have got next to no dialogue on them. Like obviously I still write what goes into the panels. And if I've come up with something that I think can just be completely delivered visually by the artist, then I often think that that's some of the kind of most effective work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I made some lame attempts at humor with pretending that Skin Police was about a variety of things, but it's a really cool concept. How did Skin Police come to be?
So Skin Police, I guess when you first got so the kind of pitch for it is a world where there was a fertility pandemic, like no one was having children, which
Hmm.
caused a lot of panic. And in that time, there was a kind of dictatorship taking hold in Europe, so everything was kind of up in the air. And there was some cloning technology which was being tested, but actually wasn't safe. But the technology kind of got into the black market. So people that were desperate for having children could go and get their own illegal black market clone baby, which might be their own genetic material, or maybe, you just pick it out of a crate of multiple clone babies, depending on what kind of level of person you were. But that has just led to the world being filled with thousands of these genetically unstable clones who often don't know that they're clones, and 75% of them will pop. Well, which will mean that they go kind of homicidal. They get pumped full of all of the chemicals that can make you paranoid, depressed, all the kind of bad stuff that our brain can do to us sometimes, and
Hmm.
also that kind of idea of when a baby sees their mother trapped under a car, they can find that superhuman strength to like push a car off, that kind of idea concept.
Yeah.
So they're stronger for a period of time and dangerous. So the skin police are the government agency that's been created to essentially try and identify who these clones are and to stop them before they cause havoc.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so many concepts there, and that's part of what I love about science fiction and fantasy is the high level of creativity, but also the possibility for social commentary. So, anything that you'd like readers to be thinking about as they make their way through the book, and nothing spoiler related, of course, but anything that you hope readers resonate with or take with them.
Yeah, I think like you say, especially with sci-fi, there's always a lot of real world analogs kind of commentary going on, and the original concept, like people might think of Blade Runner when they hear it. And so it was like seeing Blade Runner, and that's a film where there's like five replicants that are out and about causing trouble. Or is it five or four? I know that they changed it in the Ridley Scott in different versions, but there's only a handful of these dangerous replicants. So I kind of in the same way that The Walking Dead was like zombies, but the whole world, and it goes on for a long time. This is kind of like that for Blade Runner, in that instead of four or five, there's 10,000 of these dangerous characters around. So there's a lot of that looking at, I guess, the treatment of this kind of mental health treatment in there, because there is a version of the world where this government could do a lot more to help the
Hmm.
the duplicate people, but they've gone for the option of just let's just treat them as if they're not human and get rid of them as kind of painlessly as possible, which creates a sense of fear, people informing on each other, a little bit of that McCarthyism kind of vibe with like, oh, if I point the finger at someone I think might be a clone, then that kind of keeps the heat off of me if I've got my own concerns. And I think what was a really big breakthrough when I was working on the series, I'd had the idea, and I think just naturally, we're so exposed to American culture and these American stories in these kind of worlds that you naturally just like it's a bit Blade Runner-y, or maybe it's a bit Akira-y if a bit of it's like a Neo Tokyo vibe. But when I decided to set it actually in a future Europe, which
Hmm.
has been united as kind of a new superpower in amongst all this turmoil of the fertility crisis, that opened up a lot of other avenues for me, in that Europe has a much different relationship with dictatorships than maybe what we see in a lot of the mainstream entertainment that we watch that's set in dystopian futures, where
Hmm.
everything's like it's terrible and like a dictatorship is never good. But there have been several dictatorships in Europe that kind of trundled along fairly routinely for a long time. Like Spain, where I live, had a dictator up until like the early 70s. And
Hmm.
you have this idea of a dictatorship meaning it's going to be like Handmaid's Tale or Judge Dredd or something like this. Whereas probably if you visited Spain in the 60s, you wouldn't have known that it was like a dictatorship. It was a different kind of form of control. And so I thought that was interesting that a lot of people are just living their normal lives in this world. Like everyone's a little bit more suspicious of each other, a little bit nervous. You
Hmm.
have that kind of Stalinism where it's like, oh, you know that if you even are suspected of doing anything that might go against the people in charge, you could very quickly be carted off. But there is a large percentage of the population who are actually kind of just living fairly normal lives. So it's dystopian, but without that, it's I guess a bit more nuanced than some of the kind of dystopian fiction maybe you'd be used to.
Yeah, yeah, very, very interesting. And uh, that leads me to the next question pretty naturally, which is I'm a fan of dystopian storytelling from film to comics to literature and all the interweaving in between. If you could choose a dystopian world to live in that's been featured in a story, what do you think that would be?
I guess there's a few of them that look quite good now
Yeah.
compared to what we've got ourselves. So
Yeah.
yeah, some of them might be a bit like a holiday at this point. Um, yeah, I guess obviously like the ones that are truly dystopian are all pretty terrible, but maybe like read it. I've read quite a lot of Judge Dredd, and I think if you just stay out of it in
Hmm.
Mega City One, you know, you're not in a gang. They always seem to be having a lot of like fun parades. If you, especially in the early Judge Dredd comics, they're
Yeah.
always having a celebration of a parade for something or other. So it seems like as long as you kind of kept your head down and avoided crossing any of the judges, maybe you could carve out a decent existence in Mega City One.
Yeah, yeah, that well said. And you've got like vigilantes on the
Mhm.
horizon, so if something goes bad, there are
Yeah, you got
consequences.
a little robot helper as well, a little Walter. Be
Uh-huh.
nice, kind of doing all your chores and stuff. So yeah, I think that you could be in worse places than maybe having like a reliable job in a kind of a safe sector of Megacity One.
Yeah, yeah. I like that answer. Very good answer. Well, I think I have one more official question that's on the list. By no means not trying to rush or anything like that. So if there's something we've missed, please do throw it in. But if I'm a listener out there and I want to find out more about your work, the works that are forthcoming, as well as Skin Police, any particular places that I might want to go to check that out?
Probably the best place to really keep up to date with me is I've got a Substack, which is called Burnt Barn Business. So there, I at least once a month, I get up a newsletter breaking down everything that's coming out, things I'm working on, maybe something that's come up in my writing in the last few days that I thought was interesting to kind of dissect a bit for people to see what they think about my experiences with it. So that yeah, that's probably the best place. But then I'm on Blue Sky, which seems to be picking up a bit of traction at the moment.
Hmm.
I'm just Jordan Thomas, as I got in there early. So yeah, so easy to find there. And yeah, I'm on Instagram as well, ampersand 1988.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jordan, I'm always glad to talk with you, and I always enjoy your work and the things you're creating. Glad to have you back anytime, and many thanks for the time,
Oh, thank you. It's been fun to chat as always.
as always.